individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today.
Many of these types of games are happening because obviously it says a mafia-run poker game.
It was all built around Chauncey Billups. I had heard about the game, and the person who told me about it was like, look, I know the game runners. I'm telling you 100% this game is on the up and up. And I was like, well, I know a lot of the people that are involved, and I'm telling you 100% that it is not on the up and up. I feel like there's a lot of things that are coming out of this report that aren't really factually accurate, which is unfortunate because it is so mainstream.
The Interview by PokerOrg.
So welcome to a special edition of The Interview. We're here with Matt Berkey. Berkey, I'm sure that you have been heavily involved. Your phone was ringing off the hook a couple of days ago. When did you first hear about this scandal with poker players, NBA players, and all these things happening with the indictments?
As far as like, when did I find out
who tipped you off? I mean, your phone, I assume, was ringing off the hook. Like, this is happening. Do you know anything about it?
I woke up, I guess, the morning of whenever all this broke, so Thursday morning, and I had a bunch of missed calls from different reporters from every outlet imaginable. Didn't really understand why. And then, I went to social media and saw that Chauncey Billups had been arrested, which obviously I immediately knew that we had spoken about it. I didn't realize the internet was so undefeated in finding two-year-old clips so quickly. But it was a whirlwind from there.
Well, you posted that up very quickly. It got a ton of views. So Cheryl, let's catch people up who haven't known about this, had a chance to watch you some other interviews, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Exactly what did you know at the time? You mentioned you knew about the 2019 game around that time. You were asked to play in the game. You knew other players that went, I assume. Can you share a bit about, for us new people finding out about it at PokerOrg, about exactly how it came to in your orbit and how you dealt with it?
Games like this pop up all the time. Different people were running them or the head of them. Different people were trying to recruit for them. Having access to high stakes private games is nothing really foreign for me. So I didn't think that much of it. But when this particular game was being pitched to me, just some of the other people that were being invited were peculiar, I guess. They would otherwise have no access to a game like this, particularly like when it's high profile people that the game's being built around. Like, for the most part, even I don't have access to this. It's not like I'm getting invited to a Kevin Hart game anytime soon.
Right.
In spite of the fact that like I have had the pleasure of playing with him once or twice. Those are like very, very rare special occasions where they just happen to have one seat that can't be filled. You kind of fit the mold for a guy that would be a good person to introduce, maybe brings enough action or what have you. In this instance, it seemed like every pro under the sun was being invited, and like that doesn't really track. And then additionally, the people who were being kind of sold as the operators or the game runners, if you will. I don't remember which one in particular at the time, but one of them had a very long-standing reputation for not running the most up and up games. So it was like a pretty easy spot for me to pass on. And of course, I had a lot of friends go, lose a lot of money. We're very suspicious of everything that was taking place. Within, a few months there after the fact, we were all pretty sure that they were kind of on the wrong end of a cheating scandal.
But there's nothing you can. When a player loses, I've talked to a couple of people, and they know a player that lost maybe a lot of money in that particular game in 2019, and Chauncey Billups made a lot of money in that game. And they were a bit suspicious of the circumstances around it. And are these kind of games pop up like this with celebrities all the time? But in the way this one was organized, so it sounds like it was no surprise to you that this finally came out in the way it did.
Well, of course not. I mean, 2 years ago, I said that the game had been certainly cheated, and the game ran, 5-6 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the consensus was that this was definitely not on the up and up. Like I said, all the details that I gave, this isn't a normal occurrence. Regular, everyday Joes that play 5, 10, 10, 20 are not going to have access to a celebrity game. That's just not the way the world works.
Right.
So whenever they all have an open invite, it's very likely that you're not in a straight game.
Have you come across the sophistication that we understand there were? I talked to Houston Curtis, has been involved in breaking down these kind of cheating situations. I did interviews with him in the past. He talked about the shuffler, the X-ray table, so to speak, the chip racks that had chips in, other ways to cheat at the game. And he said a lot of pros would understand right away if they saw the shuffler, and if they're not riffling the cards or shuffling after it comes out of the shuffler, they would immediately know that's not a good thing. That they were
I don't
possibly
think
on the
enough
table.
pros look for those cues, but yeah, I
Really?
mean, well, there was a relatively, I don't want to say infamous game or anything like that, but there was a game in Houston a couple years ago that Landon and a few others were cheated, and it's almost a certainty that it was through the deckmate too. But when you're playing in a card club where you expect there to be some level of security, you don't really overly police those types of things,
Right.
unless you're like on the lookout for suspicious behavior. But it is like a fool me once, shame on me, or shame on you kind of thing. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I think like as time progresses and more of these stories break, people will know to look a little bit closer, especially if they're in a home game or an unregulated club that's using a deckmate too. These are going to be instances where you're going to want to have to police this a little bit more. The X-ray table thing really bothers me. It's really especially bothersome to see poker outlets reporting this as though that is a thing. It's
It's not.
clearly a
Yeah.
misrepresentation of, or a misunderstanding, I guess, of like the technology that was actually being used. And this stuff is very common. We've known about it for years. They're mistaking it for an infrared deck. So what they did is they had cameras in the in the chip well, where the dealers are, and they were using an infrared marked deck. If you want to Google it, you can. Again, this what usually bothers me is infrared decks get mistaken for RFID decks. They're not the same thing. Infrared
Okay.
is just a different type of technology. It's effectively equivalent to like a barcode that's on each individual card, and the cameras aim at them. You could use like a key fob or a faulty phone or something along those lines to do it instead. In this instance, they were pretty smart. They put the cameras in the dealer well where nobody would obviously ever check, and it just reads the deck. It scans the deck from top to bottom, just
Mhm.
like a coupon scanner would at a grocery store, something like that.
Right.
So it just registers the deck from 1 through 52, and then information is just passed along to whoever's cheating. They know who's going to win the hand before any card is off even dealt. They know what turns and rivers are, but this isn't that sophisticated. This is just what happens when you have complete control over the back of the house. If you have a corrupt game runner, then it's very easy to get these decks in play. It's very easy to set up the camera technology. It's very easy to set up the earpieces that are necessary in order for those who are cheating to receive the information. This type of stuff is only going to happen in an unregulated environment. It would be nearly impossible. I'm not going to go to the lengths to say impossible. I'm sure that, at every level of corruption, you can get an inside man. But in a casino environment, this is almost certainly going to be an impossibility, as would the rigged shufflers.
Right.
It's very, very difficult to corrupt a shuffler in a casino environment without somebody noticing. So it's unfortunate that so many of these scary stories come out. But if you really do your homework and trace it, it's only happening in environments where we as the players are imploring trust universally to one individual who's incentivized to make the most amount of money, which is the game runner.
Right. And I think you guys talked about it on your well-known Soulful Wide podcast about an instance at one of the local Vegas casinos where a group was caught using like a Ring camera to catch the pitch, to be able to catch that and catch that. So these things have been happening in casinos, but those people were caught and banned from the casino, obviously.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sophisticated. That
right.
takes a high level of sophistication, and policing it's not super easy, but obviously if we can keep trinkets and technology off the felt, then it renders it relatively useless. It's
Right.
very difficult to execute otherwise.
So how can we turn this around into a positive thing for the poker world? Obviously, it comes up all the time. There were cheating games in OC that were involved with um, Airball and Wesley accusing, I think, one of the men that were in the indictment, Shan Hennon, in cheating in OC, and that went by the wayside. And somebody was brought to the light in the poker community. It was talked about a couple of years ago, and now we have something similar going on. How can we reframe this to make it a positive note to remind the community to be very careful of these things moving forward? And I'm sure it comes up in conversations with you, your friends, your recreational friends, your pro friends, of how we deal with the situation to make sure this never happens. Yet you warn people all the time. We do, and they want to show up as an allure about going to play with celebrities and things, right? That gets them in the game, these face cards, they call them. So how can we turn this and make this we all love the game. How can we make this a positive spin on it that, we can let people know in the mainstream that poker's not a bad thing?
I don't know what the face card reference is. I've never
Yeah,
heard
somebody
that.
called them face cards. These when you have a celebrity show. It's the first time I'd heard it too.
I feel like there's a lot of things that are coming out of this report that aren't really factually accurate, which is unfortunate because it is so mainstream. Um, and I think that it's important, especially at the federal level, for the FBI to get some of this language correct. Like the X-ray table thing is obviously nonsense. This whole
Yeah.
face card thing, like nobody's ever said that. Although perhaps that was common nomenclature amongst this group, because everything I've heard is that the people who were cheating had looked like the type of people who had never been dealt in before, and they were making these wild, erroneous plays that made absolutely no sense, which obviously was a greater tip that the game probably wasn't on the up and up. Um, I don't think that we need to worry about spin. I don't think that the industry I think generally our industry overreacts to being in the news for bad reasons,
Yeah.
mainly because there isn't a good counterbalance of being in the news for positive reasons. But who cares? Um, if anything, this week has really opened my eyes to getting to kind of speak to people on a national platform that otherwise never ever think about poker. Uh, it's just interesting to them. They don't give a shit. If all poker boiled down to was Molly's game, rounders, and Casino Royale, and you infused all of that with like these wild, crazy cheating stories, that's interesting to people. Nobody's getting turned away. The majority of the people that are seeing poker for the first time have no interest in playing anyway. So it's not like you're losing customers this way. I think that like the whole idea that we need to put a positive spin on everything, and we need to let people know that this is a mental warfare in sport and everyone's welcome. All of that stuff is very true. And it's all happening at scale in casinos where games are on the up and up. But once you get to the professional level and you're talking about trying to earn a living, trying to be a part of some tiny little insulated group that has the privilege to pay your bills by gambling, you're going to have to deal with seedy behavior, period. There's no getting around it. There's no way you would be able to make enough money or to be a big enough earner if you removed all of that from the game. And we kind of see this on the high roller tour, where edges are so small that year over year, the biggest winners, their hourly is decreasing, by some amount year over year. And there's still corruption in that world. We still had a cheating scandal taking place where, we know of somebody who was banned from Triton for using the pinhole camera system. Um, Lord knows how much along the lines of money laundering and things of that nature are taking place when you're talking about it's high stakes gambling. Of course, there's always going to be a CD side of it. All we can do as a community, I think, is put our best foot forward as far as the professionals who represent us in the public eye, as far as alerting one another when things are not on the up and up, protecting each other, looking out for each other's backs, making sure that we're not taking too advantage of. But you can't save everyone. You can't really over police these types of behaviors, because when you do, the industry as a whole is going to ultimately collapse.
No, thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't of what I was trying to get across of how we can, share with people that it's a game we love and these things are going to happen. It happens in all walks of life. Something happened to you that had to be, people were posting and very proud of you on the way you handled yourself on a national ESPN show. Pat McAfee, who is one of the inspirations, I think, for Soulful Wise Only Friends podcast. And I really enjoyed watching you there. Tell me about, did you guys know each other previous to this? You guys had a really cool conversation and he had some great questions for you. So what was it like for you to be on that show? And what kind of reaction have you gotten from being on the show?
Yeah, we had never met or crossed paths outside of just a brief Twitter exchange a couple of years ago. But he grew up like 10 miles away from me. We're, I think, 4 or 5 years apart in age. So it's very probable that at some point in time, we may have accidentally crossed paths, or we were like playing in the same underground games in Pittsburgh, and maybe not at the same time, but I'm sure that like we have a lot of mutuals that way. When the story all broke, I don't know how. I mean, again, it speaks to the magnitude at which we're so insulated by being within our own four walls. Because however much you think like poker Twitter takes off, NBA Twitter is 1,000-fold.
Oh, for
The
sure.
the way that video clip went viral is something that like we've never seen inside the four walls of poker. And it was very eye opening to me to kind of see what that reach lent itself to. Matt Leinart retweeting it. Like, if you would have told me that I'm going to have a Heisman winner retweeting a 2-minute clip from OnlyFriends, I would be like, well, that's just simply not true unless someone called in a favor. So obviously it found its way across McAfee's desk. Again, he was at least aware of me when it comes to the poker side of things, and he has a great interest in poker. Plus, the story wasn't going away. He shot me a DM and he basically said, like, would you be willing to come on if we decide to discuss this? Because I think internally their whole thing was, we don't want to put anybody in harm's way by naming names. We don't want to put the industry as a whole portrayed in a bad light. Same thing with the NBA. We don't want to like over drum up hype around like this quote unquote scandal. But I think by the time 24 hours had passed, it was very clear that like they were going to have to talk about it. You just couldn't really ignore it. I mean, had it happened one day later where the weekend would have kind of like let things brush over, then I probably never end up on the show. So it was just combination of fortunate timing, him being aware of me, and it being in my wheelhouse kind of thing. And me being one of the people that was, I guess, early to break the news that people cheat.
So do you expect, having been very experienced with these things over the last 20 years of your experience in the game, do you expect more to come out that we haven't seen yet? And if so, what else do you think is under the surface that we haven't heard?
I think more will come out one way or another regarding this case. Whether or not there will be additional ties to other potential, cheating rings, or if there's overlap between a lot. Like, look, there's a lot of characters here, Curtis, Shane, etc., that were high enough profile in the poker community that you can pinpoint a half dozen other games that they were involved in some sort of capacity that were presumed to have been cheated. So how much overlap there is between this 31 person ring and the Mars case,
Right.
or the Chad Power home game, or, the Houston games, and et cetera, et cetera. We don't know. And I don't know if that will make it to the public light. I guess it depends on how the federal government prosecutes all of this, but I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked to find out that this was all just, kind of one ring spread out amongst many, many, many games. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of details we don't know yet about this particular group. I also wouldn't be surprised if like there are ties linking back to all the sports betting drama that's been taking place over the last year, all the way from Otani to the Jonte Porter stuff. I'm sure there's a lot that has yet to be uncovered that will come out in the near future.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of athletes playing a lot of the different stream games around the world, and you play in a stream game there with Venetian just the other day. So anything you want to leave, maybe a message for people out there who are listening to this, and maybe some people who are newer to, or recreational players, maybe newer to the game, that you want to share beyond what you already have?
I think I mostly said my piece. I guess the big thing is to understand that cooperation goes a long way in this industry, in spite of the fact that it's portrayed as a zero sum game and kind of a lone wolf dog eat dog world. It's really important to be able to rely on a community and, be vigilant, make sure that everybody is safe, and that we're all winning and losing uh, by playing by some set of rules and ethical code that we can all abide by.
No, I totally agree. I really appreciate you taking your time. It's been a busy weekend for you, and good luck with your Pittsburgh team tonight, the Steelers. I grew up as a Dallas Cowboy fan. Sorry.
It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Matt.
Yeah, no problem.